Hello, Diablo community.
All
Welcome
right,
to
let's
another
go.
Diablo 4 Campfire chat. We have a lot to talk about today. I say that all the time, but I will say that this time we really do. Yeah,
Let the people
we will
decide
let the community decide. I promise you, this is a lot though. But my name is Adam Fletcher. My name is Adam Fletcher. I'm the community lead for the Diablo franchise. Of course, I'm joined by a wonderful panel here, plus one other who is off camera and will be jumping in. We have Charles Dunn, who's a game designer on Diablo 4, Mr. Joe Shelley, who is the game director of Diablo 4, and Mr. Joe Paipora, who's the associate game director of Diablo 4.
Hello.
And we will be joined by Adam Jackson, who's the lead class designer of Diablo 4, before we get to the class-specific information that we're going to share today. But I know Joe wanted to jump in, talk a little bit about some of the things we're going to be talking about today, and then we will go through a plethora of changes coming to Diablo 4, and of course, details about the first ever PTR, Public Test Realm, for D4. And for people who don't know, Public Test Realm is kind of like a private server where players can actually end up playing early content and test that out and provide feedback to us. So we'll go through all the details on that as well. But Mr. Joe Shelley, want to kick it off?
Thanks, Adam. Yeah, so I want to frame this update. This is a Season 4 update. We're going to talk a lot about systems here. And I wanted to do a little bit of framing. When we think about Diablo, right? Diablo is an ARPG. Everybody knows what an ARPG is, right? It's an action role-playing game. But it's such a broad category, right? You have lots of games that are ARPGs. A game like Hollow Knight, for example, is an ARPG, but it's also a Metroidvania, right? Or a game like Hades, which is an ARPG. It's also a roguelike. Or something like Elden Ring, which is an ARPG. But it's also Souls-like, right?
All right, what are we getting? Come on, give me something good
what
here.
What is Diablo, and what is Diablo 4?
Okay.
You could call it a Diablo-like, sure. But another way to describe it would be as a systems ARPG, right? An SARPG. And so what distinguishes this kind of game from those other games that are in the same space, that are all ARPGs, right? And it's really about when you're making decisions and what the most important decisions you're making are. The most important decisions in a game like this are the decisions you're making before combat, between combat. Decisions you make in combat are important too, but those are the ones that are the most important. Action combat, RPG elements, and systems are all foundational elements of any ARPG. But in a systems ARPG, the systems in particular, including the end game, itemization, things like crafting, those are what comprise the soul of the game. And they're the lifeblood of a game like Diablo 4, and they don't just have to be deep, but also lush, prolific, exciting. So as many of you know, we've been designing this update for a while. We're putting it on the PTR because it's important, and it's important to get it right, like Adam was saying. And everything that you'll hear about today is from that S part of the SARPG, the soul of it. Joe, Adam, and Charles are going to take you through the changes, all the changes, in detail. And there are a lot. So sit back, grab a drink, get your React faces ready, and let's do it.
Awesome. Well, appreciate it, Joe. So I know what we want to do first, we kind of have an agenda of items, but one thing we do want to talk about really quickly is about PTR. We do want to get some housekeeping notes and what players can expect from PTR, along with the dates for PTR, so when they can actually jump in. So Season 4 PTR is actually going to start on April 2nd, and it's actually going to run for a week through April 9th. So players will be able to jump into PTR.
So it's 1 week of PTR.
And, try everything out that we're about to tell you all about here in this stream.
Usually
now, I know a lot of people are probably
1 to
asking,
2
like,
weeks.
hey, that seems pretty close to the end of Season 3. Is that enough time for you guys to actually react to the feedback that we're going to be getting from PTR? And I will note here that we do plan on actually extending Season 3 for this.
Season 3.
Season 3 is actually going to have a new end date. We're pushing it back a few weeks.
A few weeks.
We get all the feedback from this PTR, and we apply
May
it
14th.
to Season 4 to make sure that all these new system changes that we're doing are right and work for the community based off of everyone's feedback. So Season 3 is now going to end on May 14th. And of course, with that, Season 4 also starts on May 14th.
Okay, but do we get some...
a few different
we need an update
changes coming on
before
for the schedule.
that,
So you'll see that
hopefully.
in-game message, which actually notes like when the season is actually ending, change today probably with this new date for players so that, again, we can make sure that we apply all the feedback from PTR, which starts on April 2nd through April 9th.
So
One other note is that, again, PTR itself is specifically for PC BattleNet only. So this just allows us to be a little bit more agile on our team. Does this mean that PTR is only going to be PC BattleNet only in the future? No, it doesn't. We are going to try to explore other ways of being able to bring PTR when we do have a PTR to players in the future. But for now, this one is PC BattleNet only. So, and we'll have instructions of how to actually get into the public test realm client on Diablo 4 through the PC BattleNet client next week when we actually have a full blog that will explain kind of all the details of how to do that well before the start of PTR in itself. But then there's other notes with PTR as well, because there's probably going to be a lot of questions of like, well, am I starting with like a level 1 character? Am I taking my existing characters? Since PTR itself is a fresh new server, you will actually be starting fresh on PTR, but we do have boosting options available because we need players to actually jump in and test out some of these features that we're obviously in these system changes that we're doing specifically for PTR. So I think we actually have a slide, I believe. Speaking of which, I know I'm actually bringing the camera back to me, Lucas. Sorry. Oh. I've seen a lot of feedback about, hey, you guys have a lot of slides. Sometimes the slides have a
my bad. What
lot
happened?
of information specifically in
just for
that we need to
screenshots.
actually showcase because there might be a lot of details in there. I will say we will have slides today because there's a lot to share, but we also have a live build. So we will actually be going to the live build to showcase some of the changes just because we know that a lot of players want to see more gameplay or see them in game. So we do have that here today. Okay. Now we can go to the next.
Okay, so what is this?
So slide.
Okay.
So there will be PTR boosting features available for players that are jumping into PTR.
So you get an
will
instant
be able to boost
100,
a character
okay.
immediately up to 100. When you do that, you will receive 100 million gold and 1,000 obols. You can do this multiple times.
So you
can
can level up the
trade
glyphs. It's
gold
about like
across
5-ish
events, of
hours
course.
maybe to
And
level up the
then,
glyphs.
we will also mark the campaign complete.
As long as they give you gear, that'll be
For
okay.
your character, as well as offering you a mount, all your skill points, and more. Skill points again. Paragon.
Oh, it gives you
Fog
all
of War
Paragon
will
too,
be
okay.
Completely cleared. Altar of Lilith points will also be cleared. It's actually going to match the renown progress on your
all Paragon glyphs.
original Diablo 4 account. So if you
Double
already done all
legendaries.
your renown rewards and everything, you'll end up getting that completely covered off on your character.
Yeah, pushing
for
it back that
PTR.
many
And of
weeks
course,
is
all the classes and
crazy
mechanics, things like
for Season
enchantment
3.
for sorcerer.
I agree with you guys,
like
but
Book of the Dead
they got to
stuff
do it
will-
if they're
will
gonna
be,
make
enabled
the
for you
other
for this
update much
character
bigger.
that you end up
I think it's
creating
worth
for
it.
PTR or any other characters that you create, and then all your Paragon glyphs will be unlocked, and legendary drop rates will be doubled. And I believe glyphs are also
glyphs are maxed.
Yeah,
All
glyphs
Okay.
are also maxed up.
That's
So
cool.
you will have that
Max
capability
glyphs.
there. There are like a few things that will be not present in PTR, but that is like, for example, one of the things is Codex of Power, but we'll explain why here in a minute. There's some more details related.
Hopefully
to
we get that
Power,
Codex update.
for players to kind of understand why
Can
that's
you do
not present.
PTR
there.
on Steam Deck?
So
Sure,
we
why
will
not?
be accepting, of course,
It's
feedback
PC, right?
for the PTR across all our different social channels, across all our different community channels. And we will be turning on a specific PTR forum on Diablo4.com. That is not on right now, so no one can actually see it. But once that does come online, we will also be checking feedback there. So please provide feedback based off of everything that you are hearing today and playing through during PTR between those dates that we actually mentioned, because the team is going to be looking at it and making sure that we can make any changes before the start of Season 4. So with that, now that we've gotten through the PTR like housekeeping notes, Mr. Joe Pipe.
Let's dive in, okay?
Let's dive in.
There is quite a bit to cover today, so we're going to try to move briskly through parts where we can. So there's 3 major things we're going to be discussing today. The first, Charles will be bringing us through a number of itemization and crafting changes you're going to see when Season 4 goes
That's
live.
like the biggest thing here.
I want to also be
Items.
very clear that the changes we're talking about today are all going to be on the Eternal Realm and on the Seasonal Realm. We're not actually talking about the season specifically today. We're really talking about this massive item update in other these other
They
updates
said
that
it,
happen
massive
kind of
item
in
update.
parallel to season development during this time. So that's going to be the first part. The next, I'll be guiding us through some of the new end-game content that we're going to be implementing and integrating into the Season 4 release. And then Adam Jackson is going to be coming on to talk about a lot of the live class updates making across the various mechanics of the game. So there's a lot to look forward to. Let's go ahead and just, I guess, dive right in. Charles, if you don't mind taking us away.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's start talking about itemization. So when we think about the itemization updates, I think it's really helpful to frame this conversation around some of the goals that we have for the itemization update. So our number 1 main goal here is to focus on quality of items over quantity of items. So one of the persistent points of feedback that we've gotten since we've launched Diablo 4 last year was that a lot of the items that you find in dungeons and throughout the game, you end up just sifting through a lot of items, searching through your inventory, and reading a lot of lines of text, and ultimately a lot of the items just end up being junk for you. And that
loot
was
filter,
never really,
yeah. Hopefully we
it
can
never
see
really
that.
felt great. And so with this update, that's been our driving. Our number 1 goal is to focus on making sure that when we do give you items, they're high quality items, they're much more likely to be useful for your build, rather than just flooding you with endless streams of often junk items. The second goal we have here is that the best items in the game, the really pinnacle ones that you get at the end game, they have a journey associated with them. As I said before, you were kind of sifting through your inventory and looking for these items, but once you found that perfect item, you were pretty much done. It was basically a complete item, and you're already done with the item. You've completed it.
Well, if you have
We
the best
think that
item,
the game is a lot more engaging when you have a bit of a journey and investment, whether it be in time, crafting materials, and you really get to customize and make items your own and make it feel like this is for me and my build.
hopefully
and my character.
crafting is what I want.
It's absolutely the experience. Yeah.
Yeah. And the third goal that we have here is to focus on moments of surprise and delight in the itemization chase. This leads to moments of, hey, I found the item. You get really excited about it. And you're just, you have these infrequent moments. It's not going to be all the time, but when you do find it, you're going to know it, you're going to feel it, you're going to be really excited about what just dropped. So with that, we have a number of topics within the itemization update. So the overview here is that we've got updates to existing systems, such as base items updates. We've got a few additional updates that are kind of adjacent to the itemization system. We've got some updates to Codex of Power, which we sort of alluded to earlier, and I think those are going to be some really big wins. We also have some new systems being introduced here. We've got tempering, which is going to be a new customization system. Greater affixes, which help to provide some chase in the end game. These are going to be some of those powerful items, ones that have greater affixes. And then once you do reach that end game with great gear, you're going to be able to masterwork it to really unlock its full potential and upgrade it to the best possible version that it can be. So let's hop into some of the base item updates. So this is where we're going to focus on making a smaller pool of affixes that are more relevant and more potent for your specific build. So as I kind of mentioned earlier in the goals section, a lot of the affixes and stats.
This is good. Only Ancestral World Tier 4.
Often very conditional, right? You had like damage while berserking or damage to close enemies or things that were hyper specific and ultimately just were kind of meaningless in a lot of ways. They blended together. We're really focused in this rework, we're focusing on reducing that pool of affixes to be more general. They're more applicable to a lot of builds. They're not going to be this hyper-specific conditional, and they're going to be more potent. So some examples here, we've got ranks of a single core skill. Sometimes on gear, you would find items that have ranks of upheaval, ranks of whirlwind, and ranks of double swing, all on the same item. And almost no build wants all three of those things at once. So we've made it so that, hey, only one of these can appear. That makes just the subset of items that you find much more likely to be relevant for you.
Okay.
And in terms of like being more potent, we're looking at things like in World Tier 3, only sacred items are going to appear. And then once you get into World Tier 4, only ancestral, only those most powerful versions of items.
I mean,
will
that
appear.
should have been in there at the
This means you're
start,
just getting
but
less junk, right?
it's
Sometimes
good.
you get
It's still a good
sacred items in
change.
World Tier 4, and that never felt great because, hey, I'm in World Tier 4, I should be getting the best items now. We also did a pass on the affix values to make sure they're a bit punchier, that you could feel it when you really equip an item. This often was just some numerical tuning. In the past, you might get an item that said plus 2% critical strike chance, and honestly, it was hard to ever notice that, or like plus 5% damage or something like that. And those really small values were just hard to ever notice when you're swapping it, and it never felt like you got to upgrade your gear. So let's take a look at
when you go to like
some
5 out of
examples here.
5. Okay, here we go.
Oh, right. So the other update is that we
Screenshot this real
are
quick.
reducing the total number of affixes on gear that initially
So
dropped.
stats have less
So
items now.
legendary items used to drop with 4 affixes, 4 lines of stats. That's going down to 3. And then rare items, the yellow items, used to have up to 4, and now they'll just go down to 2. And
So rare items have
yeah, so the goal
half
here,
of the
once again,
stats.
is to really focus
Okay.
on the quality of the affixes that appear on the gear rather than just the pure quantity. And this also gives us room to build on it in some of the later crafting and tempering systems. You are going to get more affixes, but the base item is going to start with a little bit less just so we have room to grow.
One of the changes that we're making in response to this also, like we know that right now, like rare items are the items that players are using to trade in situations where you find like a really, really powerful template item.
So rare
Obviously,
items
max
are
roll,
worthless now,
100% and
guys.
such, right? Like there's
Unfortunately.
these are still really important for players. So as part
But
of this change,
there's some good
we are
news.
going to open up trading to allow legendary items
Yes!
and unique
Yes.
items to
Oh,
also
let's
be
go!
tradable,
Yes.
starting in season 4.
Oh, that's
It's
so
a big
good.
change for us. Now, one distinction here to keep people on, to let people keep this in mind.
So rare
is
items
that
are worthless, guys.
Crafting on either of these items, whether you're going to be tempering or masterworking or anything else later on down the road, these things like enchanting does today, these make these items account bound. So you can't trade them once you get them after you've done some crafting on them. So
That's
we think
actually
this does
good.
a great job of making sure that the trade economy is still interesting, and that when you're looking
Oh,
for
I'm
a
so
specific
glad.
item or an item is dropped for you that a friend can use, it's going to be a lot easier for you to go and hand those things around now.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's.
By the way, I'm gonna know.
Adam Jackson. Oh, yeah, Adam Jackson snuck in here. Yes.
Trading is a big deal. Very important. I'm okay
Very
with taking
important.
that back.
Literally appeared for trading. Yeah.
He appeared for trading.
Yeah.
Trading fairy.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyways.
yeah, absolutely. That's a very important note, and I know a lot of people might have saw this and thought, "Oh, rare items are now, how can I trade?" But now
It
you can still
originally
be
was
trading these
designed
legendary
like
items
that.
you find if they're useful.
Because now we
for
can
you,
talk
or you
about
think they
the
might be useful for
NDA
others.
has lifted
Oh, and also,
because
I should
we
say
can
also,
talk about
uber
this.
unique items are not going to be tradable
Right,
in season
correct.
4.
Everything that isn't a new.
Yeah, everything that is not an uber unique.
And
is
uber
not-
unique, yeah. Those are the
I
most
still
powerful
vote-
items, and if you want those,
I
you're gonna have to
tried,
go and
guys.
find them
I
yourself.
tried.
That's right. Those
I
are the
tried to
most
tell them
powerful
just
items in the game.
full open trade just for one
so
season.
let's
Just
take
test
a
it out.
look at,
But I'll take this as a W still.
Closer example here. So we've got,
This is
kind of
good.
on the left, a before. This is a boned wand of Serration. This was before our update. This is what you could currently get on.
Basically, you get
And can
double the
see how it's
stats,
got,
and you
plus
can go
intelligence,
further beyond this
vulnerable
when you
damage,
temper.
damage,
They'll show it
shadow
off in a
damage
minute
over
here.
time affected enemies. That is a mouthful. Same with the lucky hit, chance to execute injured non-elites. These are
execute is such a
really
worthless stat.
hyper-specific affixes that we're talking about that really bloat items. It takes a while to parse this. Like you just can't at a glance tell, hey, is this even good for me?
Yeah, reading through a number of conditional additive damage modifiers is like when you're like item to item, it's just very, it is taxing.
Especially when you really fill up your inventory with 30 plus of these items, trying to sort through them all at once when you just really want to get back into the action, right? You want to get back into fighting demons. So after this itemization update in the after section here, we have got a similar item.
I want to
It
see
has
how
intelligence,
close
it
they
has
listened
plus damage that just applies to
to
all
the-
your
the-
damage. It's
the-
not
the partners here on
hyper-specific.
this too.
And we still do get give you a larger bonus if you're hitting vulnerable enemies with this. And
Can
it's
you get an item now that gives you like int, dex, and strength on it?
No, in fact, because this wand just has intelligence on it, it is just the main stat for your class. So if you are a sorcerer, you're only going to find intelligence on items. If you're a barb, you're only going to find
So they're doing
strength,
smart
and so
loot,
on.
which is
You also
Diablo
find
3.
all stat, right?
Yes.
all stats
Yeah,
stuff
you still
like
have
that.
all stats,
So
but no more you're going to find.
All
oh,
stats,
I've got,
your main stat
intellect on
is
my
what you want,
barbarian.
and then plus
That's
any
just
damage
basically a
is what you
complete
want
stat for
now.
you.
That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah, you can trade
Alright, so let's
legendaries
talk
and
about
uniques.
some
No
of the
uber
other
uniques
additional
though.
updates that are
a good
kind of
change,
adjacent
good
to
change.
The main itemization updates.
Alright.
Legendary item drops from monsters
And
that are level 95
easier
or
Ubers
higher
now.
are always
It's-
going to be at item
Watch
power
this.
925. That is
Okay.
the highest item power in the game. And once you're really facing the toughest monsters in the game, we want to make sure that you're constantly getting the best possible items. This really comes back to our idea of quality over quantity. Once you're at this point of the game,
But
you
rare items are
don't
useless,
really
which is fine,
care
whatever.
about
I
anything that
still think
isn't
it's a dumb idea,
925,
but-
so why are we dropping that for you, right? You're going to be kind of graduating out of caring about item power because you just know that everything I'm getting is the maximum item power. Next, we've done a pass to update our gems. They are a little bit simpler. Some of the gems used to have, once again, those very conditional things like critical strike damage to vulnerable
Oh, are they
enemies was
removing
like
that?
one stat on one gem. So we kind of simplified it, so we now just have bonus critical strike damage or bonus vulnerable damage. We've also
it's not really changing
added,
The gems are very
some updates to
uninteresting in
have
this
core
game.
stats on them, so some of the gems will have strength,
Oh.
some will have dex, and so on.
Wait.
And they'll have a little bit of a longer crafting tail. They're a bit more powerful.
Which
at the
you just
top end,
want-
but they do require
you
a
just
bit
want
more
main
investment
stat
to
then.
really unlock that highest power level.
That's
And
good.
once you have all the gems that you want, excess gems will now sell for quite a bit more gold. So that way you're not really going to waste once you have kind of found those best gems.
Okay, it's not bad.
Additionally, we've done a pass on the salvage, crafting, and rewards have all been retuned for this new world where we're dropping less items than before. Once again, we're focusing on you have less time sorting through your inventory and more time getting back in the action, more time slaying enemies to find those items.
Yeah, there's much less cruft in this version of the feature, right?
Yeah.
Like you're not walking out of a nightmare dungeon with 25 items.
No.
To go and deal with at the back at the
Right.
blacksmith.
But the ones that you do have are much more likely to be relevant and useful to you.
I'm just gonna
when you
ignore
do
all of
find
them, to
them.
be honest, and just go on trade. Like it's so much
Additionally,
faster.
We've item rerolling, the enchanting system at the occultist. We know this has been it has like a scaling gold cost currently, and that just keeps on ramping up. If you want to keep fishing for that perfect affix, it could cost millions upon millions upon millions of gold. We put a cap on that. We don't think it's really healthy to have that actually scale infinitely. It'll still get a little high, but it's not going to go to infinity.
So that's good.
We've
Overall.
taken a pass on the materials, the crafting materials, things like ore and herbs, and some of the other crafting materials in the game. And a lot of the ones we had some variety of like common herbs, so that were found in different zones, and there was some nice flavor there, but ultimately they didn't really provide much compelling gameplay. So we've consolidated all of like the common crafting materials into just a single type, just basically common herbs. And then there are still some rare ones to find, to craft the most powerful elixirs and so on. But
I don't like how rare
simplified
some of
that
these
system
things
so your
are.
collection,
Some are drop
is
only
a
for
little bit easier and more
consumables.
streamlined.
Yeah, we also removed things like there's like a lot of monster parts like pale tongue and things like that are also have been removed as part of this experience. It's gonna make it a lot easier to craft elixirs in this new world.
Absolutely.
And-
You don't have
and-
to scroll through that tab so long to see
Yeah.
exactly
Yeah.
what material you want to
Yeah.
craft with. Yeah.
Especially when they ultimately just fed towards that same goal. And then the final update we've got is updates to the Forgotten Souls, right? So the late game crafting material that you use for a lot of the enchanting
They just
or
drop
or other
globally. This
crafting
is great.
systems,
This is basically just
we're making them a
D3
little bit
though.
more accessible.
It's like
They
Forgotten,
come from Whispers of the Dead caches, and they can also
was it
rarely
Death's Breath,
drop
right?
globally from any elite in the game. And this is a really cool moment.
They're just moving this to
you
Diablo
kind of have
3,
this
like all these
jackpot
changes
moment.
are
It's
D3.
pretty rare when you kill elites, but there's a moment where you just get like this explosion of loot, and it spits out a ton of the Forgotten Souls or other loot or other crafting materials.
It's a
And
better
that's
decision
a really
than
exciting
what they
moment,
had, but
when you encounter it, in
I
game.
want it to be its
pretty
own
rare,
game.
But you kind of hit the jackpot when that does happen.
And for Forgotten Souls, that can happen outside of Helltide, right?
Oh yeah, that can happen on literally any
Uniques
elite
are
in the game.
earlier? Wait, uniques can drop in World Tier
Also,
1?
we're looking at
What?
updating our unique.
That's awesome.
Unique items are these really build defining.
'Cause most of them suck.
flashy,
Like, I'm gonna keep it real.
Unique items, right? They are very powerful. Currently, they're locked behind just World Tier 3 and onward. They're really late game items.
What, Uber
And we
uniques
thought,
drop at
to
Monster
really get you into the
55?
fun faster to get your
What?
build online. We've made it so that many of our uniques in the game
That's
can now
so
start dropping
early?
in World Tiers 1 and 2.
Holy.
So you can start getting them earlier on in the experience and really get your build going
Wow.
much quicker. And then once you do get into World Tier 3, then all of the uniques in the game have the potential to start dropping, including Uber uniques, which are typically those very late game chase items. There is a chance that monsters starting at level 55 drop these Uber uniques. It's a pretty small chance. It's very rare, but it's one of those moments that
I mean,
you're
is
gonna
it so
find,
rare that it's like
if you're
season
lucky,
0?
You might find a Harlequin's Crest
Yeah, you
at
remember
level
that.
55.
You'll remember that playthrough for sure.
Oh, you definitely will, right? And of course, they'll drop.
May
I was gonna say,
14th
kind of going
is
back to our
the
goals
next
of
season.
Itemization update in general is that, like at any time something really exciting can happen, right? That's the main impetus for doing this is that even early on in the game, you can get the main thing that you're looking for. It's going to be very rare, not very common, but it's possible. Even some of our other updates coming that you're
I
going
mean, the problem is that like
Absolutely, yeah.
possible
We
is
want you to
like
have the chance
what season
to
0
really
where like
have
3
that
people
viral
got
moment,
them.
that really exciting
the
moment when
world.
You find that awesome loot.
Yeah, they pushed back the season.
So
Season
after
3's
that covers the,
extended.
additional updates. We've got to talk about the Codex of Power. Right. So the Codex of Power is a system that has been in the game since launch, and
This is a big
we're making
W.
a big update here, where now all legendary aspects in the game will start appearing in the Codex of Power. Every single one. Previously, it was just a small subset. And I believe we even have some in-game footage that we can talk and go through an example of what this looks like.
Yeah, we'll jump over to it. We have behind the scenes. We actually have Ruben, aka Bloodshed, former content creator,
Nice.
now part of the Blizzard team here on Diablo. He's actually driving us through our build here, but he will be driving through all our little demos that we have today. So
Yeah.
So basically, all the
so we
stats
can
got
see
doubled.
In our inventory right now, we've got Edgemaster's Siege Bow. And this has a little icon on it in the upper right in your inventory there. And that indicates that if you salvage this legendary, it will upgrade an aspect in the Codex of Power when you salvage it.
That's right. So you no longer need to go to the occultist
This is
to
huge.
extract aspects in any
Correct.
way, because aspect crystals are no longer a thing in this new version of the Codex of Power.
Yeah, aspect crystals are gone. It's just when you salvage the legendary, it will upgrade it. So we salvage it, we can see that Edgemaster's aspect has been upgraded in the Codex of Power. So we go to our Codex of Power and let's go take a look. So we've got Edgemaster's aspect here.
Oh, that's good that you could mark
steers
his
Zeal
favorite.
up to
That was a
6%
suggestion
increased damage based
from
on your
the
available
partners.
resource when cast. So that is the kind of legendary rank of the one that we just salvaged. Now this says 6% here. In game it was 12% because it was on a two-handed bow, and that doubles the range. But you can see it's not a minimum roll. Right now on live Diablo 4, it's always just a minimum roll, and so once you find something better, a better aspect crystal, the Codex is kind of irrelevant. Now the Codex will continue being relevant because every time you find a higher roll of it, it's going to upgrade your Codex, and
By
you
the
can
way,
continually
as far as we are aware, this
legendary
resets
power
every
onto any
season.
gear
It's
that you
not
find
like
going forward.
That's
the
right. So if
Lilith
Ruben finds a
statues.
10%
You have to do this every
on
season.
something else, then that is now going to, you can go ahead and salvage that item down. That 10% version is now going to replace the 6% version he has right now, and that's the new version that you have. So when we're talking about upgrading, what
That's
we really
good.
mean is like as you find the better versions of these aspects, they replace the older ones. Now every time you decide you want to imprint the Codex of Power, that's going to be the version that you get from that point forward.
So if you find a max roll the first time, are you just super lucky? You have it forever?
You are super lucky, and you would have that forever.
Oh,
Yeah,
they said
you can
forever,
continue
but
to imprint it.
hold on.
However,
Yeah, every season
the
it
ranks of
resets.
legendaries, you won't be able to find a max roll of these legendaries in World Tiers 1 and 2. when
Oh,
you're
you
just starting out your
you
journey.
actually can't find
We have
them.
extended the range, so a lot of legendaries used to say, hypothetically, if a legendary rolled between 20% and 30%, now we've extended that range from 20 to 35%. But those like 30 to 35%, the highest range, the most powerful versions, those are only going to be accessible in World Tier 4 in the later games. So this does give you a bit more of progression. So you can find it early and you can upgrade it, but then you're going to find even better versions.
So
as you
basically,
progress through
it's
World
still
Tiers.
all the gear that
And,
drops is
we
worthless
actually
until you
need
get to
go
World
back
Tier
the build
4
really quickly
or level
because,
55 for the Uber
and,
uniques.
Ruben, if you can
Bring
pull
up
up
that
the
Codex
Codex of
again.
Power.
Yeah, you can
really
you can
quickly.
use aspects
Yeah,
infinite
yeah,
times.
yeah.
Because
Just salvage it
one
one
big thing is,
time,
like,
and you'll
I
if
know
you
we
if you have a
like
max
go
roll,
into
you're
it quickly,
good.
But there are filters, ways of searching through everything, which is really nice.
Oh, you
And
can
then,
put
of course, on the
keywords.
icons as
That-
well. I
that's
think
actually
people
really good.
Are probably seeing these numbers associated. I know.
Yeah.
It's something that is changed obviously with this new Codex of Power, where It's showcasing like, hey, there's a gold version of.
This is
aspect
just
of
quality of
Cooking
life
Log
versus
right
like
there,
new
which
content,
is
but this
already
is still
showcasing, hey, you have it completely maxed at
very
16
good.
out of 16, and of course there's different ranks as you're kind of like leveling up throughout the Codex.
You play
content,
Eternal, it'll
different
just keep
aspects.
upgraded.
Yeah, I really
Yep.
love that gold border.
If you
to
play
really
Eternal,
indicate that,
just
hey,
do it
you
once,
found the best
man.
version, you've kind of completed
Good.
this. And some of them, you kind of cheat on it, right? Things that only have one rank. As soon as you unlock it, you get the best version.
Yeah, that's an example of one that you could max out in World Tier 1.
You probably could, right? But most of them have now, up to 16 ranks is kind of our standard, for the most part. And those highest ranks are just going to be in the later world tiers.
And for a lot of these aspects too, when we went to 16 ranks on these, we actually extended the value, the power of these, and potency of
Upwards.
these aspects
Yes,
upwards, right? We didn't
yes.
water it down. We actually extended it up.
Yeah,
Okay.
for the most part, these,
So we're
these
gonna be
have
stronger.
increased in power at the highest level, just to make them really rewarding in World Tier
This
4
update
when you
is
find
for
them.
season
And
4
I'm
and
sure there's
Eternal,
people
yeah.
asking specifically about, hey, is this a seasonal thing? Is this an eternal thing?
The
it-
update
is
goes
everywhere
up
forever.
on May
is the new world.
14th.
This is the new
This is
world.
that's right. All the updates we're talking about today,
Correct.
once again, are for the Eternal Realm and for the Seasonal Realm. These are not seasonal updates only.
Yeah, they're coming with season 4,
Yep.
but they are applying to the whole game
Yeah.
forevermore.
And I do want to note, like, Codex of Power with seasonal characters, of course, will end up change. Like every single time
It
there's
does
a new
reset.
season,
Yes.
it
Yeah,
does.
in
You
the
will
same
have
way
to-
that it does today.
But eternal characters, will just have
You
it
can
forever.
actually fill it out
eternally.
forever,
Yes.
eternally.
Of course.
There you go.
All right, so that was a ton on the systems that already exist in the game, right? The base item affixes, the other updates, and Codex of Power. But there's also new systems coming.
We're not done with
That was
itemization.
updates to
Halfway
existing
done.
things, but
Yeah,
we have
let's
got
go.
a lot of new stuff. So let's talk about tempering. Tempering is a new crafting system that will allow you to add really cool new affixes to your items. And so I really just want to highlight that this is not just taking those old really conditional nitty-gritty aspects or affixes. This also includes a lot of really new exciting affixes as well that we'll showcase a bit later. Things like a chance to cast bonus projectiles, increased effect size of your skills, and other ways of talking directly to individual skills. A lot of this lives in tempering. And so this way you can really customize your character specifically to your build and the skills that you're using and the way you want to play.
I wish they
So
just
you might
showed
be
it
asking, well,
off.
how do we temper?
We'll
We've
probably show it
got,
off in a moment here.
Tempering manuals. So these are items, manuals that are going to drop from most content in the game. This isn't something you need to go target farm. You're just going to find these as you're playing. And these manuals are going to be a list of possible affixes that are kind of themed to individual builds. So if you are a
I think there's like 3
bone
rolls and it
necro,
randomly
for
rolls
instance,
1.
The manual for Bone Necro might have things specifically to Bone Spear and Bone Splinters. And
If you
Bone
played
Spear.
last Epoch, it's kind of like upgrading. It's
When you do the tempering, which is done at the
what's it
blacksmith,
called? Crafting
it will attach
potential.
a random
But it's
one of
always
the
12.
affixes from that manual onto the item that you're tempering. And if you don't get the exact one that you want, or you don't get the roll that you want, you can re-roll these affixes up to the item's tempering durability. Now, this is a lot without an example, so I think we've got an example where we can just
they should just show the
walk
picture.
through,
There
right?
we go.
So here's some screenshot examples of the actual recipes that appear. So on
So
the
it adds
left,
another
we've
stat to
got,
the item.
The Manual of Natural Motion. This is a generic recipe that really applies to any class. It's got a variety of movement speed options on it. So you've got, you might just attach movement speed to your gear. Maybe you get a higher value of movement speed, but only after you kill an elite. We have the option to reduce your evade cooldown or give you mobility skill cooldown reduction. We've tagged a lot of skills in the game with mobility tag when things like teleport or
So the
charge.
item that has 3 stats will now have 4 after you
And then on the
temper
right,
it, so it's the
we've got
same.
one that is more specific to
But you have higher
necromancers,
numbers.
because this is the bone necro one that I mentioned before. So we've got a chance for bone splinter projectiles to cast twice, chance for bone spear projectiles to cast twice, increase the size of your bone spirit explosion,
very cool.
or increase the duration of your bone storm. So if you're a bone necro, one of these is probably going to be pretty relevant to you and will be really a cool way of customizing your character and your skills.
I like this. This is more interesting than just damage.
So here's an example of the UI.
a welcoming change.
So on the left, we've got this Choker of Ancestral Charge, one of my favorite legendaries, currently on.
So yeah,
season
you get to
3.
pick the 4th slot.
And
no,
so
I
it's
believe
got,
it's
the
random.
relatively simpler affixes. It's got just max life, damage, and critical strike chance. And we go to the blacksmith. We put it into the menu here, and we can see that
looks
there
like there's
are kind of
2 now.
6 categories, with 5 of them being highlighted. These categories are the categories of recipes.
So
each
does it
recipe
not RNG it?
corresponds to one of these categories. And
So
on
you can
amulets,
add
you
two.
Put anything except the weapons category. So that's why offensive, defensive, utility, mobility, and resource are all highlighted here. And once we go through this, we can do this twice because most items can only be tempered once. You can get just one affix on them. But ancestral items, these really late game World Tier 4 items,
that's
can
all
be
that matters.
tempered twice from 2 separate categories.
So it'll have
you
5
can't put,
stats.
say, 2 defensive ones on there. You're going to diversify. And in this case, we've got charge cooldown reduction added on the right. And we've also got some bonus damage while berserking. So we've got an offensive one here. And then we've got a utility one that gives us the cooldown reduction. Do we have a live example of this, of going through this
I want to
actual
see if
flow
it's
so we can
random
kinda
or
show you
not.
what-
Okay,
what
because
this ends up
that's
looking
very
like?
important.
Yep.
There's no new class
right
announced.
there.
Not yet.
Points.
That'll be
Points,
expansion
and
pack.
blacksmith.
Yes.
Okay, this
So in
is
here
the most
we've
important.
got,
Okay.
our bow of branching volleys. We can put in here. Because this is a weapon, we can attach ones from the offensive category. And so
Oh, you get
here's
to select?
all the examples.
Oh,
we've got
that's
5
huge.
different
Okay,
recipes
that's
that we've
actually
unlocked
so-
here,
oh, no, it's
depending on how we wanna build our
recipes.
character. So if
Oh.
we want to do, say, marksman skills to put on there, we can do marksman finesse. And this will give us either bonus marksman damage. Why don't we just temper it and see what it looks like?
So it's a
We get
random.
This flashy
It's
animation.
random.
that comes in,
Dang, dude, it got
and
me
we
excited.
see, hey, we added 29%
You
marksman
called
damage.
it.
Right?
But that's still
That
just
worked out quite
plus
nicely,
damage.
yeah.
It's not interesting.
that's
The other,
awesome. So-
the
Not
Necromancer
scripted, by
ones
the
were
way.
way
Definitely not
better.
scripted, so yeah.
Actually, wasn't. But
It actually was.
you were actually talking about.
You're in the grips of RNG.
Yeah.
One thing I want to call out also while we're looking at this is that so we are in the season 4 update, or this PTR update that we're talking about right now.
You
this
get
is,
life
this is
now
our first
on
PTR
weapons. That's
update.
huge.
There's a lot of changes we have going in, and there's some things that are going to be are kind of in the middle of
Ooh,
being polished
that
now.
reduced
They're kind of being
resource
wrapped
cost
up
reduction
with
is
some things in the back.
massive.
There's going to be some things that players will see on the PTR. They're going to feel like, oh, this is like not quite like what I expect. Or there's like
So if we get
bugs
reduced
in things.
resource
Yeah,
on
that's kind of the nature of the PTR experience.
Amulet-
I want you to report those, like Adam called out a little bit earlier.
The
and get your
boots
feedback
and now
on
the weapon,
experience.
that is going to
that's
be
actually
pretty
a really
insane.
good refinement, because I
Resources,
think a lot of
no
people haven't
problems
experienced
anymore.
PTR, especially if you're like kind of new to Diablo and you do jump in. PTRs will have bugs. It is an early look
And
at the
polish.
build.
Yeah,
so there will be bugs, polished things that won't be incorporated. So yes, provide feedback on all those things so that we can actually hear those and make changes for those.
But if we throw back to Ruben real quick, the thing I wanted to point out was like when the the tempering process went through, so you got 28% for the that marksman damage, but the item itself got a slightly different number. There's just a bug that we've identified that we're in the middle of fixing right now.
Right, that's
So-
just a display bug, but this is one of the things that we're working on, we're aware of, and going to polish up because that's the nature of game development.
Just for the
right?
eagle-eyed among the viewers.
Yes.
So that's not even a 5 out of 5, or
All right,
they've done
so,
the other
a few other things to
upgrades.
call out here.
There's more
Let's
upgrades.
Actually, close this menu and
We
then
no
take a
longer do
look
5
at,
out of 5. It's pretty
take a look
cool.
at when it's in there, we can talk about tempering durability a little bit.
Okay.
So you can see when this is in here, we've got tempered affixes, 1 out of 2. Because this is an ancestral item, you can temper it twice from 2 different categories. So you're going to be able to put 1 weapon and 1 offensive on there. And then there's this tempering durability remaining. So this is how many times you can re-roll the tempered affixes. The first ones that you attach should not be consuming tempering durability. I think this one might have one of those bugs where it did consume it, but ultimately this is going to be the number of times you can re-roll.
Yeah.
You're-
We're actually going to update the string. I think it's going to literally be called tempering rerolls.
Reroll.
Yeah,
Okay.
to make it really, really clear. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is the kind of things that we're actively working on, and we love your feedback on to make sure that we can get this right and really communicate the way the system works. So we've attached an offensive affix onto this. Let's take a look at some of the weapon ones that we can attach on. So here we've got ones that.
Oh, screenshot it. Fenrir, we saw it. It's confirmed.
Yeah.
Live
build.
build indeed.
Live build.
Well, so we can talk through what would have happened there.
yeah.
Right, so when you would attach the weapon category, those are often the ones that are the more, I would say more interesting, right? The bonus projectiles, the bonus effect size.
Yeah, that was there's the weapon category that had a chance to create different, like multiple bone splinters, or
Yes.
twice rather.
Yeah, that's in the weapon category. So there we would attach one of those. Maybe we'd get a chance for rapid fire projectiles to fire an extra time.
Okay.
And then when we do that,
Only
maybe,
one more time
Oh, we
is
actually want to play a
pretty-
penetrating shot build, right? Or maybe rapid fire is not that great.
This is-
we
this
can
is-
consume one of the tempering durabilities to re-roll that and try to get that bonus rapid fire projectile ones that we want.
At least people now believe it's live.
People still think we weren't doing it live.
Looking at it. But yeah, I know we're getting the build back up here and everything. But
There's a lot of really cool new affixes in general.
this is
inside
actually
the tempering system.
huge
I know,
surprise.
I've
I'm
been playing
gonna give
a
it to
lot
him.
of season 4.
I didn't expect it to be this good.
On our dev build. And I'm playing a barbarian right now, and I've been playing a lot with Dust Devils, which I know we'll talk maybe a little bit more about
we're
later.
gonna talk about
I love me
Dust
some
Devils.
Dust Devils.
But there's like opportunities to like spawn, like instead of spawning one Dust Devil, you'll spawn multiple Dust Devils. There's Dust Devil size. There's a lot of really and duration. Like there's a lot of really neat new things to play with to build upon.
And these are basically legendary aspects.
Yeah.
It's really huge, like
Yeah,
genuinely.
That's really the goal of tempering is customization.
These are basically like Path
and
of
really
Exile, like
cool
Link
new
gems.
ways of building your character. That's not just plus damage.
Yes,
There is
thank
still
you. That's
some bonus
exactly
damage
what I
as-
want.
As you still need to in order to actually.
But
do
I want
damage.
crazier
There's a lot of ways
stuff,
you can customize your
like
skills
removing your
and
entire
make it
mana bar
really
for
your
something
own.
completely
Now,
different.
right now, you can temper
But it's still a
legendary
step in the
items.
right direction.
Correct.
And rare items.
Yeah, I agree. They
You can't
absolutely
temper
need
unique
more
items.
endgame content. That's what I've been saying,
Unique
Rising.
items, what kind of what
For
you
sure,
see is what
man.
you get, right? They drop still with the 4 affixes for the most part. Those are going to be unchanged. You won't be able to temper onto them
With tempering, yeah.
with tempering, right?
And then we show the tempering durability,
Yeah.
as part or tempering rerolls in this case. So the idea here is that like when the player has you're not happy with all the affixes you've got, you've kind of rerolled through all of your options. At the end of that process, you simply can't temper any longer on that item. There's not a way to reset that item back down.
Yeah.
One of the goals that we have for ourselves in terms of like trying to have
So
higher
once it's
quality
bricked,
drops
it's
in
bricked,
general,
right?
is to make it so it's
Right?
a little bit easier, and also ensuring it's easier for you to reach those 925 capped items when you start to really deeply engage in features like this. Is you want to make it a little bit easier for you to go find some of those really good baseline template items for you to start building on top of, as opposed to it having it be like I need to find like 70 helmets in the hopes I find a max roll cooldown reduction on it, right? Like we're in a different place now in terms of how we're thinking about that. In addition to the crafting, the trading changes that we've made as well. I want to make it a little bit easier for you to find some of these things between it being a lot easier to have drops that are relevant.
Yeah, 'cause if it's just 3 rolls that
various types of content
are on the
but
item.
also that if you're playing with
It'd
friends,
be better
it's
for
optional
trade,
to do
too.
trades and things around at the same
But
time.
I wish they would add
I
an
think you
in-game
make a really
auction
good point
house
about
or
finding
something.
really strong base items to build off of. And I think that goes great into our next point where we talk about greater affixes.
Yeah.
So greater affixes are affixes that appear in the late game. They are more powerful versions of the normal affixes. So they come at a 1.5x multiplier
So
on the affixes.
this is
max
basically
roll.
like
So
Ancient
let's
if
say
you
a
played
hypothetical
Diablo
affix
3.
might come between like 50 to 100 of a stat. If it rolls greater, then you actually get 150 of that stat instead. Instead of the roll, it always comes in at max. So it comes in at that 150 mark. These are really exciting drops when you get into the late game. They're going to be immediately obvious whenever they drop on the ground. They're going to have a little change.
And I
to
think
the
you can
UI,
have
so
more
you can
than
see it
one
right away, and you know,
of
hey,
these,
that one has
by the
greater
way.
affixes on it. And that's going to be ones that you're really going to want to pick up and make sure that you take a look at, and then you really want to build off of because they're some of the strongest affixes in the game. I think we've got an example here. And one other note, these, as I mentioned, they're late game. They only appear on Ancestral Legendary items and Ancestral Uniques that are dropping in World Tier 4. I think we can zoom in on the top one here, where we can see we've got a little, like some Roman numerals at the end of it, 2. That indicates that this pair of gloves has 2 greater affixes on it. And when you actually go and pick it up, you
you
can
get
take a look at the
3?
tooltip of the item itself. And we can see that intelligence here
That's
is
crazy.
highlighted. And so is critical strike damage.
126.
And these roll at the max roll, and I think we've got a
Oh, they always roll
comparison
max.
between.
So yeah, it's basically like
standard
primal.
version. So on the
Is
left
it's more like what it is.
Is
Yeah.
a non-greater version of a dagger. You've got say 74 dexterity, and maybe it rolled between 70 and 84. But on the right, we've got a greater version of dexterity, and that's going to always give you 126, which is 1.5 times the 84. Same with the critical strike damage down at the bottom. So if you find the dagger on the right, that's a really good one. I mean, not only do you have 2 greater affixes, you also max roll the attack speed in between. That is a great base item to start building through the tempering system on. Thing we've got, the next topic to talk about is Masterworking. Masterworking is a late game crafting system that we're going to use to upgrade the items. So once you kind of find a really good base item, maybe it has some greater affixes on it, and then you've tempered on the affixes that you want. You know, hey, you've found the exact affixes that are specific to your build that you've attached onto it. Now you're really pushing into the late game content. It's time to start Masterworking. And Masterworking has 12 ranks where you can upgrade the current affixes on your gear. So this isn't going to change any of the affixes like enchanting or like tempering does. This is just going to take the current ones and then upgrade them through 12 ranks.
This is kind of like the old gear upgrade, right?
Similar, yes. However, both Masterworking and tempering are replacing the old gear upgrade system. The previous system, where you just kind of upgraded the item power and the values went up by a bit, these two systems replace that, and now you're going to be able to customize them and then masterwork them
It's
instead.
significantly more powerful on the back end of this as well after these things are
Hopefully
done.
they can
Yeah.
show it
Item
off.
upgrade, yeah.
I believe it goes to like
Absolutely.
you can get 4 tiers
so
or something
the
like
12
that.
ranks of Masterworking, as opposed to the 5 of the old system, most of the ranks are going to increase all of your affixes on the gear by a small amount.
Yeah, there's
But
like
then every 4
Yeah, every four.
ranks,
Okay,
so
here,
rank
I'm gonna
4,
screenshot this.
8, and 12, are going to upgrade a single affix by a large amount. So here's an example. The ring on the left is rank 2 Masterworking. You can see that right up there by the item power. It says Masterworking 2 out of 12. Let's focus in on like the maximum life affix there. So on the left at rank 2, you see we've got 880 bonus maximum life. And so we take it, we masterwork it up to rank 3, and then that will upgrade that to 920 maximum life. So a little bit of an improvement. But then once
plus
you get
40.
rank 4, we actually get a much larger increase in maximum life. It goes from 920 all the way up to 1,120, while the other affixes on the gear stay static because they didn't roll randomly because we're only hitting 1. To Joe's point earlier about we still have some in development. This is in development content. It's not final, as the watermark says. The tempered affixes at the bottom, the Golem active cooldown reduction and the Bone critical strike damage, those also would be being upgraded and are eligible to have this this larger bonus. But in this particular screenshot example, those numbers didn't change, but they will change in the final. And there's
That's like
also
upgrading a
better,
gem in
yeah.
PoE.
Yeah,
This is
they'll be
actually
included just
pretty
like all of the rest of them.
amazing.
But yeah, so as you go through it, you're going to get kind of 3 of these effects. at
Dude,
rank
we're gonna
4,
be
8,
so
and
much
12,
more powerful.
And they can all go on the same one. So if you get really, really lucky,
But
and
we
you
need
really
World
needed
Tier
a lot
5
of
or
maximum
something.
Life, you know, you might get just a ton of maximum life every time that increases. Or it could be on one of your tempered affixes. You could get tons of Golem cooldown reduction if that's the kind of build that you're looking for. And once you fully masterworked an item, you if it didn't really pan out the way you wanted to, the random rolls didn't quite go your way, you are able to reset it and try it again, but you will kind of lose all the materials that you've invested into it, but you can try that again. It doesn't completely lock you out of it.
Right. So once you've got like a really great pair of gloves or whatever that you've tempered at this point, you enchanted to get exactly the affix you wanted off it. Maybe
So you can
got
temper,
some
you can
great
enchant,
affixes
and now
on
you
it
have
when you
masterwork.
started.
So there's depth.
Then you take that item into, assuming you got through all that process,
actually
you
pretty
can take
good.
it into the masterworking feature, and then you can kind of keep going at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and get the opportunity
Absolutely.
to kind of hopefully crit exactly the affixes you're looking for.
Yeah, and if you do get that right, you find something that's got, you know, critical strike damage, and then you hit all 3 times on it, super upgraded. That's going to be like one of the best items in the game that probably no one else has one exactly like that. Because
That's good.
You really needed to hit the right one every time. That's going to be a really powerful item that is going to be very
To get the new
memorable
materials,
when
you
get
just
all
play
that
the game.
coming
It's
together.
pretty good.
I think we've got an example here to really
Okay, here.
highlight all of these systems taken together. So on before, this was that Boned One
Okay, hold on,
inspiration that we
switch it.
talked about right at the beginning when we talked about paring down the affix list to just more simple intelligence, damage, and vulnerable damage. And on the right, we can see it after it has been tempered. So we've got Bone Spirit damage. We've got chance for a Bone Splinter projectiles to cast twice. And then we can see intelligence has been highlighted in blue. That means it's had 1 of the upgrades from Masterworking. And the damage stat on here has been upgraded twice. That's why it's in yellow when we got up to Masterworking 12. And you can see how we've taken this progression, this item progression. So here, once you got it all the way up to Masterworking 12, this is really kind of the pinnacle of what items can be in our new itemization world.
So one thing I want to highlight here is that the total depth of what an item can do and the complexity. You can still make an item do a lot of different things, but on that before side, you know, when you're looking for
They
items
should
that
have
are
improved,
dropping,
like, the
that's
transfer
all that you're
bonus
going to parse
splinters,
through over
though.
there. It's just
The
like
reason
3
why
affixes. Did I get the
the
ones I
other
want?
stats are
You
just
can
bigger
do
number.
that very quickly and parse through a lot of items that way. But you're going to be slowly, you know, introducing that complexity over time to your items as you upgrade and masterwork them. So you're going to be building the items that you really want to be using.
I wonder if two-handers become
Absolutely.
worthless
In
because
terms
of this new
lucking
system,
out on
though.
this, I think it's fun to call out like
For,
it is
like, you know,
basically
Sork
9
and Druid.
5% upgrades to your affixes during the regular masterworking process, and then there's 3 randomly selected 25% upgrades to the to one of those affixes. So if you're very, very fortunate and you manage to triple up on a particular stat, you can do the math. It's a tremendous, tremendous upgrade for that affix overall. For that slot.
If you want to go hard into one affix, you can go really hard into
You
one
go
affix.
really hard on
potentially.
CDR in this world, right?
I'm
Like,
terrified.
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
You can
Super
go
awesome.
hard into CDR,
Yeah.
yes.
Or really hard on bonus projectiles, because those are cool and flashy.
Or bonus projectiles.
Yeah.
That's actually true, yeah.
It's going to be really sweet.
Yep.
bone spears everywhere.
Absolutely. But of course, you might be asking, okay, new items are great. Well, what am I going to do with all of these
Yes,
new items?
this is
Before
what
you
we
even
need to see.
bridge to me. Okay.
World Tier 5, come on.
So 2 things I want to call out. One,
I hope for that World
Masterworking
Tier
works on
5.
unique items.
Correct.
Yes.
So you know some of those really, really cool affixes that can appear on unique items. Not the power of the unique item, but a lot of like the really specific unique affixes. Those all benefit from the masterworking process as well, which are really significant, right? So I
you
think
can
there's,
masterwork
there's
uniques?
something really, really fun there. Also, you can make sure that like when some of these unique items are dropping, they also can have greater affixes attached to them. So those same unique affixes that we're talking about, like that is huge. Like now you get an extra like 50% value on top of that.
Yeah.
So like you get 50% value on top of the unique item affix, and then on top of that you masterwork it. It can get really, really bonkers. So there's a good chase involved in this. But like even allowing for like player trading and everything else, there's still like lots of really exciting stuff for players to find.
Yeah, and the other thing I've seen a little bit of this in chat as well is like a lot of people are going like, hey, when are we actually able to experience this?
PTR.
PTR. Well, first PTR, and also at the same time, this is something that does start immediately with season 4 when it begins.
Yes.
This is all the
good,
itemization changes will start with the start of season 4. Because I know a lot of people were questioning because they're going like, well, we had heard Gauntlet in the past, and then Gauntlet actually started mid-season. The itemization changes and all the changes you're hearing today will start.
Dude, season 1 launch is going to be amazing. Or season 4, day 1.
on April 2nd. So
It's going to be
There's
good.
a couple other things I also want to say. It doesn't fit
I
neatly.
got one too.
Oh, do you? Oh, no, you go first. You go first.
All right, I want to clarify something because I know it's going to be a lot of questions that people have on greater affixes.
Yes.
So greater affixes, the way that you get them is you can only get them from things that drop. So you're actually looking for that moment when you kill the mob, kill the enemy, the loot drops. That's the exciting moment that we're targeting. Enchanting is still going to exist. You can still enchant your affixes like normal on those 3 ones that drop. You cannot enchant into a greater affix. You can enchant out of a greater affix. So if you choose to, if you've got like a 1 greater
Why
affix,
would you
can
do
enchant
that?
Greater affix to something else, but it won't change to another greater, and you can't change anything into a greater.
Okay,
all about
it's good that he
pinning
explains
monsters,
it, but, like,
finding
that'd be the
moment
stupidest
that's really
idea
exciting when the
ever.
item drops, seeing if that works for you. So I just wanted to clarify that on how enchanting works and kind of
Okay.
what we're going for.
Yeah, absolutely. Focusing on the drop, the moment
The
of
drop
excitement
is the
when
moment
you
of
get it.
excitement that we're going for there.
All right,
Yep.
and then one other thing I want to call out as well that we didn't talk about already, and that is that there's a lot of other changes that we haven't actually discussed here that you'll see when we get to play in the PTR. But one of them I think is really cool is we actually add a bunch of other new baseline rare affixes that can appear on items.
Yeah.
That like players haven't seen before.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
so there's as an example of a few of these, we have like Fury per second. You know, can appear on items,
Yeah.
which is very, very exciting and very interesting for my barbarian friends.
Transformative.
Yeah.
It's very transformative. Like there's a number of other ones like life per hit. You know, is now something that players can find as you're going through the experience. Like,
That's actually pretty
any-
big.
Yeah,
That's like
and also-
actually insanely
cool or-
OP.
And also ones that are cool and powerful that appear on different slots. So previously, weapons almost
this is
always
just
had
like D3
bonus
at the
damage
start.
of some sort. We've extended that, so a lot of weapons can now have resource cost reduction. They can have bonus attack speed and other things that increase your output through not just saying.
That's gonna be
damage
so
to a
OP.
certain
Barbarian will
way.
actually be
There are more
game-breaking.
interesting ways of increasing.
If you could have
your
4
output.
reduced resource of like 30% on
projectiles.
each
That's
one,
just
that just means
Yeah.
everything is
Terrifying
free.
it's so cool, though, but yeah, it's gonna
that
be
is really
pretty
cool.
sick.
Having bonus projectiles drop and then have that potentially be a greater affix when
And
it
then you
goes, and then you
masterwork it, now
masterwork
you're-
bonus projectiles,
Yeah.
and it gets silly.
Yeah.
This is good,
I
just
know
letting it
we want to talk about
open.
some end game stuff that's coming to the game. Actually, maybe we leave that for the end of the stream itself, right before we go into Q&A. Is there? I'm going to ask production here. I'm going to pivot them. Is there a way that we can jump to class changes coming? To
Me next.
Yeah, you next. I'm
You
pivoting.
got kind of a
Okay,
shrug.
I might actually separate this into two parts.
We'll go through the end game stuff here because we do have a lot of additional things that we still.
Yeah, because
need
this
to
is already
talk
like an
about.
hour long.
Even pair with this itemization.
Okay, I'm gonna
These
end it here for
itemization
itemization,
things,
but there's gonna be
we'll
a
jump into
follow-up
class
video
changes
for
really
class
quickly.
changes
Sure, we
next.
can go to